Okay, so I saw some video. I was trying to refind it. There was this black kid, I'm going to say. He might be a man. He looked like a kid to me. Definitely, I would put money on he's younger than me. So he does this funny little infomercial where he's like, "Are you feeling like they're taking over your characters? Are you feeling like they're ruining everyone and how uh how they took this character and made them black and how they did this character and did this and blah 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 blah." And then he pulled the rug from under your feet and goes, "Well, you're only had a problem with these characters when they were minority characters. You didn't complain." And then he shows Bucky being Captain America, and I think he showed like one other example and tried to say, "Oh, if you have a problem with these characters, then you need to be shoveling, crap." And he shows like a little emoji, and it's a little cute, stupid video. Here's because he was like, "Oh, it's the wokeness," but it wasn't. Oh, it wasn't bad when it was white dudes taking over. Okay, first off, any real comic book fan would know that anytime they make a major change to a character, people complain. Okay, let's get that part straight into the point. If you're a real comic book fan, and yes, I'm calling out anyone who says it because this is a major thing. Two things usually happen as a comic book fan. One, they make changes to characters, try to refreshen them. And two, at some point, the status quo always gets restored. That doesn't mean it's not annoying. That doesn't mean it's not stupid. That doesn't mean they didn't do it unless it's something that got really popular and kind of stuck. So, for example, Captain America and the stupid pirate boots. For a long time after Ultimates, because Ultimates got really popular, he had combat boots on. I like Captain America's Ultimates look. I think the character during that time was better represented in Ultimates. The Captain America you see in the movies has a lot of the Ultimates flavor. The combat kind of outfit with the when he had the fatigue, the way his costume was when they gave him a more comic accurate costume in Avengers, it was kind of okay, but certain times it was But the chin strap, the military helmet, like people really liked him in the previous Captain America's suit. They liked that military style suit with the combat boots and stuff because it just felt more military. You see what I'm saying? It had that combat feel. That's why in the next movie, at some point, he put that costume back on, and then they eventually like kind of made it more that way. It's just they kind of form fitted it a little bit better, but with the Kevlar and stuff, it just felt better. And he had the combat boots. Well, after they did what they did to Captain America, um, they put him back in the pirate boots in a much more classic costume. I don't really like that costume. I like his other costumes. One of my favorites is his one now that it's dubbed Stealth Suit in MCU, but they when he was taking over Shield, and he had that there because he aged. So I like that costume. Now, let's talk a little bit about the differences of this. I guess all intents and purposes a straw man argument that they try to say this argument is a straw man argument. Let's look at some of the character changes on some of these characters when people took over. So there was a stint in time, I think it was around the time of Story of Demon in a Bottle. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong because I'm kind of doing this off the cuff. That Rhodey actually ended up being Iron Man. I didn't hear actually a lot of people complain about that. He was War Machine. Iron Man was going through a really dark time as a character. So Rhodey had to put the costume on because part of Demon in the Bottle, Tony did some crazy stuff. Like the one time he like shot a laser from orbit that sets out a war or something like that. And the government's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I don't care." And he made this really cool armor that could teleport. Loved it. Now, people actually did complain when U.S. Agent, before he became U.S. Agent, when he took over Captain America's role, because it wasn't Steve Rogers. At the time, Steve was fighting some form of tyranny, right? And he felt as though basically he became nomad, and it was like he couldn't he lost his faith in America. So he didn't want to be Captain America anymore. And then there was a stint where he came back to take his role. Um, Johnny Walker became the captain. He had his partner who was black. And they did that whole thing. That was like his version of Bucky, even though that wasn't his name. Basically, what the show did actually was very correct. And then you have Thor. Now, there was a time where if you could pick up the hammer, you could be called Thor. Betty Ray Bill picked up the hammer, got his own slither of the power. There's a huge fan base behind Betty Ray Bill. My one friend hates Betty Ray Bill. His favorite two characters is like Spider-Man and Thor, and he hates Betty Ray Bill. It's funny. Um, but Betty Ray Bill is a very interesting character. I think Betty Ray Bill is kind of a cool character myself. I just think he's interesting. He did a transformation. Now, you also had Thunderstrike. But before he became Thunderstrike, he when that story happened, he actually looked like Thor and he had a mask on. You actually could not tell that he was Thor. Now, the problem is that after these things happened, he became Thunderstrike. They had the Thor Force or the Thunder, Force. I actually or Thor Corp thing. I actually had that comic where multiple people had the Thor hammers became some version of Thor, or like a lesser version of Thor, where they all kind of shared in some of the Odin power. Now, over time, they got kind of rid of the enchantment thing, where if you picked up the hammer, you wouldn't Thor. Now, when Thunderstrike, when he finally became Thunderstrike, he had a lot of Thor's power, kind of like what you saw with Captain America, but he wasn't actually on par with Thor. Now, Betty Ray Bill, however, could physically go toe to toe with Thor, so that's why he got the hammer. But even so, it wasn't something where he was a fake Thor. Like they actually acknowledged that he wasn't the real Thor. And then over time, they got rid of the enchantment where it was just you could get the power from Thor, but Thor was Thor, and that's how they started to play it up. So these are just several of the characters that got to do this, right? Now let's talk about why it is a woke agenda. Because the guy said, these people believe it's a woke agenda, why it was a woke agenda, and what the problem was. Notice how each time I mentioned one of those characters, it was off of something else. It wasn't just a insert character here. It like the character may have been going through something, may have done something. I picked 3. Okay? Now, as of modern day, I also want to point something else out. A lot of people are not happy that Ben Reilly is being Spider-Man during Spider-Man's anniversary event thing. They're actually a little annoyed by that and confused. Okay? And I also want to point something else out about if this is not an agenda, and I'm doing air quotes, but you can't see me. Okay. First off, people didn't really complain when Shuri took over as Black Panther for a stint in the comics. I mean, you had some, but I didn't see many. Actually, some people were happy about it. Because then in turn, it turned T'Challa into the King of the Dead, which I still think is so freaking cool. Then you also have... So you have that. Now let's look at these 2 anniversaries coming up. Look at all the stuff they're doing for Ghost Rider, right? Well, Luke Cage was supposed to have an anniversary, and they were going to give the man 3 comics inside of an event and say 50th anniversary, Luke Cage, BLM people, we love ya. 3. Oh, by the way, this whole thing with Ghost Rider is like a year-long thing with Johnny Blaze and the celebration of Ghost Rider. But we got you right there, right? That's diversity. Oh, but it's really funny how nobody was talking about that. Then Marvel canceled it. Kind of quietly. They did it. They kind of quietly canceled the Luke Cage thing. Because I think they started to pick up that maybe this isn't the best route. because the way you celebrate this character is 3 comics inside of Devil's Reign. Come on, man. Come on. Come on, son. So, with all that out the way, and there's a reason why I need to preface this, let's look at the all new, all different Marvel and why it's considered a woke agenda and not your little one-sided straw man. Oh, it's because they're minorities. Because I just named, a minority character that actually did replace someone. So let's start with Hulk. You killed Hulk in order to make him an Asian Hulk. You took Captain America, passed the mantle on to Sam, right? Put that in the comic book, how people were like, not my Captain America. Now, why I personally, was upset with Sam Wilson, because Sam was one of the first black superheroes, being Falcon. And to me, it's not an upgrade for him in this particular aspect to leave the Falcon mantle behind to become Captain America, when Falcon could be an awesome, great character, and how they did it. Now, the situation with Bucky and why I was okay with Bucky over Sam. Bucky was his partner from the war who went through hell. He took Captain America's stance and did not pick up the shield until after it was offered to Hawkeye from Iron Man. And also, too, he's an actual other super soldier with a robotic arm. He was considered the gun-toting one. Not everyone was happy about Bucky taking up the mantle either. But people act like there was. No, it was celebrated because Bucky went through hell as a person and was still Captain America's friend in the end and took up the mantle during a time that Captain America was majorly needed. Now, when you give it to Sam Wilson, and Captain America was also shot and killed. That too. Sam was Falcon. Great character. No, what did they do? They give it the shield to Sam, right? And instead of turning around and maybe Captain America, also Captain America, or maybe he operates different, or maybe he does a different position, running shield, or maybe running the team from a different point, because he would be a great, leader, as he's been, maybe like a general role. No, they turned him into a Nazi. You putz. That's the problem. Now, you take Thor. The way they did Thor to get Jane Foster to do it, it felt cheap, because instead of getting Jane Foster to pick it up for number one, she's now Thor. Her name is not Thor. His name is Thor Odinson. She literally took his name without his permission, without him passing it. Unlike Thunderstrike, who got some form of permission, okay? She started calling herself Thor instead of something else, doing something that actually wasn't really a thing anymore for people to pick up his hammer, but you made him unworthy to do it. So far we have white guy turned into a Nazi, white guy killed, because you should kill the white guys, right? And then you turn the other one into an unworthy, just putz. I wonder what's the problem. Then you have it where it would have made more sense for Rhodey's niece, who helped him with his War Machine suit, be, maybe Ironheart, kind of play up the thing that way. No, instead, what you did was you made Ironheart, who apparently upgraded Tony's design and from MIT, and then you took all of Tony's money away. Oh yeah, and let's not forget, besides him being broke, they also did some form of killing him too. Yeah. Another white guy killed. As part of the Avengers. So your thing to do was, well, now miraculously Tony's broke. A character who literally could invent something on the fly and would make him millions of dollars. Because that doesn't make sense why he wouldn't be able to do that. Also, too, with the Stark phones and everything. And yeah, okay, so let's say his stuff got bought out. You think, really, Tony couldn't make a new company and rival it with the genius that he has? This dude made a flying tank of suit armor. It's it with weaponry, nanotech. You're gonna sit here and tell me he can't think of nothing to make money? Come on. But it was because you wanted to do Riri. And how they promoted Riri was the new Iron Man instead of her having her own moniker. And when the dude used the example, well, all these interchangeable flashes. Well, actually, no. There are three flashes. There's Jay Garrick, the Flash, and the Flash Wally West. Actually, there's a lot of people who have a problem with that because they were hoping during that Flash War event that Wally would get his own name. Because it's actually annoying. I like the fact that in this new Spider-Man event, even though I do not like, and I'm actually a fan of Ben Reilly, I don't like that Ben Reilly's taking the Spider-Man name. What I do like is Miles is going to get his own name. If you want to establish a character, stop doing the white hand-me-downs. And even though people were resistant to Miles Morales, speaking of Miles, being Spider-Man, there's a difference. There was a lot of people who thought he was Peter Parker because that's how the news presented it to the normies. But Miles over time got accepted because part of the reason, first off, Spider-Man made this amazing sacrifice. It's to me, it's one of the best comics Brian Michael Bendis ever wrote, was the death of Spider-Man. I mean, he said he was tearing up. It was powerful. And it's funny because, spoiler alert, if you look at the end of Endgame where Tony's sitting there and everyone's watching him pass away, you want to know something funny? It was very reminiscent of when Spider-Man died. Very reminiscent. Next time you do, read the Death of Spider-Man and check out when he dies, and then from the Ultimates universe, and then check out that Endgame scene again. Now, besides that, Miles earned his spot because at the time, Spider-Man died and he had to learn how to be Spider-Man, but he took up the mantle with the powers because it was a need. He realized he could have helped. He actually didn't want to be a superhero. It was the heroic calling. And that's why Miles started to grow on people. So, the major difference, and there's probably more to All New, All Different, but I just did those same ones. First off, you did them all within a span of like a couple months. That's way too much change, way too fast, for one. For two, where these other characters either died heroically, like when Bucky became that and Captain America got shot, he died, but it was a heroic death because he was standing up for what he thought was persecution. You see? And then there's a difference. In these particular all new, all different Marvels, it wasn't like that. You killed off one of my favorite character with a stupid arrow to the head, just so you can have, and I like Amadeus Cho, so don't get that twisted. And I actually do like what they did with him, like where he's currently right now, Braun. I actually like that a lot. But you did the thing where you replaced him with an Asian character. You basically took down all of these white characters and you didn't just deconstruct them, you kind of attacked them as the character, because Amadeus for a while was like, I'm totally awesome Hulk and I'm great. And you made it seem like he was just better as Hulk versus Bruce. He just handled it better because Bruce couldn't just handle the power correctly. That's the whole problem. You then take out and you turn Captain America when his popularity with people is at an all-time high, especially because of the movies, because he's a fantastic character, and I'm so glad the world finally caught up to how awesome Captain America is. You turn him into a Nazi. Then you take Iron Man, you cuckold him with all his money, and then have Riri come in and go, I'm better than you, and he's just kind of bowing down. And you have Thor, who became unworthy over something stupid, because it was a phrase and it wasn't even nothing that big of a deal. And when you have it with Thor, you have Jane Foster pick it up, and then they have all these problems. Then on top of that, you layer this weird cancer thing, which they flat out could cure. They even mentioned it once in a comic, and you didn't do it, which made it even dumber. And she took on a man's name. Thor is not a mantle. His name is Thor Odinson. So can we please stop this bullcrap of people have a problem with diversity, it's just the minority characters, when you can clearly see it's more than that. Clearly. They did all this in a few months. They degraded the characters to make these other characters prop up, and when it did not sell well, which it didn't, they were like, oh, it's supremacy. Instead of looking at the real problem, you did it way too fast. You shifted these characters, and quite honestly, I'm sick and tired of minority characters getting hand-me-downs. And when people do this whole crap of, it's hard to get a new character off the ground. Okay, you tell me Spider-Gwen and Miles aren't popular now. It's not hard. What they have to do is basically put it in your face. They have to promote these characters. That's all. You want the character to be more popular? You integrate them into the other teams, and then you get a fantastic writer, a hot writer like a Donny Cates or Rob Venditti. You get a banging artist, and you keep them on the book, and then you go to town on it. And then you promote the hell out of it, which Marvel and DC both have a problem with doing. And you push it, just like you push the agenda. This is the Geek Protagonist. I want to hear what you have to say. You stay safe, you stay healthy, you stay real, and I'll see you.